Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Beitz. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons.
Like, if you want to belong to others, you have to belong to yourself first. And so belonging to ourselves is like being okay with ourselves. Like so often we are running around trying to prove to other people that we're enough or we're okay or that we're valuable. But we haven't stopped to accept ourselves. We're waiting for other people to accept us so that we can feel okay. It's not a good game to play. It's not a
My guest today, Nat Couropmitree, is a multifaceted guide and mentor. He supports ambitious professionals to drop out of their heads and into their bodies, to deepen self-trust, succeed in their purpose, and reclaim their energy and joy. Beyond his professional mission, Nat loves to travel, is a grandpa to two vibrant grandkids, and enjoys dancing the Argentine tango with his beloved wife, Olga. Nat, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah. And when we talked the other day, something else we do have in common that I didn't bring up was we both have two vibrant grandchildren. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How old are yours?
One is four. The oldest is four. And yeah. And then the youngest well, the first is a grandson. He's a little bit over four, and then the youngest is a granddaughter, and she is a little over 1 years old. So they're just, such a great age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got a granddaughter who's 11 and a grandson who's just about 6 in a couple of weeks. And yeah, they keep us alive with school holidays and stuff like that. We
Sure.
always have them. They live like an hour and a half drive away, so we have them for 4 or 5 days at a time. So it's great.
Oh, how
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't
yeah.
I don't have it as lucky because my son lives in Austin, Texas, so it's a little bit of a flight, but
Yeah.
we check in on FaceTime and things like that. So,
I,
yeah.
our 5-year-old grandson, yeah, he's I can't even think which program he uses, but we get hits all the time, and he video calls us all the time, and he's go, "Don't hang up, don't hang up, hang on," and he's runs around trying to find something new to talk about. Yeah,
Oh, I love it.
they're amazing. Yeah. All right. So in that intro I just read, it says you help people drop out of their heads and into their body. Like, tell us about that one.
Yeah. Um, well, I would say that in my experience, and I'm, this is my experience, my life, is that whenever I'm in fear, whenever I don't want to feel uncomfortable in my body, I go to my head and I go to trying to figure things out, trying to rationalize or reason with myself. I try to negotiate with myself. I'm always trying to make sense of something to try to feel safe. And and even so, like, I grew up and my dad was besides being a big proponent of meditation, but he was also a big proponent of education. And so, I learned, well, okay, if I'm going to feel safe or I'm going to make it in the world, then I need to know a lot. I need to learn. I need to research. And so I hid behind intellect a lot. Again, as a way to not feel the discomfort in my body, all the emotions, all the I mean, primarily emotion and all the sensations that go with it.
Right.
So, and that was a really it hindered my ability to access my own body's guidance, my own, intuition, because if I'm in my head trying to figure it out, I'm not really in touch. I'm not in touch with, what we call the still small voice, or, the gut reactions and things like that. It's all muddled with um, all the sensations, emotions, and then just being disconnected.
All right. So, okay. So I'm just trying to get my head around that one, get out of my head and into my body. So you're suggesting there you were avoiding your emotions by
Yeah.
being in your head. And you and maybe are you saying that if we get more into our body, we're able to allow our emotions to do whatever they want to do?
Yeah. My recent exploration has helped me see that the more we allow our emotions to just be there, to even for us to feel it, even though it's uncomfortable, the more capacity we have to be with life. And but we also see that the discomfort doesn't necessarily mean what we think it means, right? Like if we can be with the discomfort and know that we're okay, then we make different choices. But if we've learned that discomfort is bad and we group all discomfort in the same bucket, then all we try to do is get rid of it or avoid it, suppress it, and we lose touch with um the positive. I don't like to say it as negative and positive, but what we call positive emotions or negative emotions, um, when we suppress the what we call negative, we also lose touch with what we call positive, right? Because it's all energy. It's it's all energy, it's all sensation. And so we cut off one, we numb the other.
Right. And I hear exactly what you're saying about positive and negative. I like to call them, just what I do is ones we enjoy and ones we don't enjoy. Um, and yeah, similar sort of thing. And it's yesterday afternoon. My I have hearing issues, and my audiologist had a look at my ears and said you need to go to the doctor and get some wax washed out. Now I've only probably had that done 2 or 3 times before ever. And when you have hearing aids, the wax does build up more than normal. And I do not like that. I remember as a child, I'd have a ear infection or something, and my mother would try and put eardrops in, and there's not a hope in this world that she would get them in. So when I was asleep at night, she would come up and put them in my ear, and I absolutely hate stuff in my ears. So yesterday I go and the doctor sends me into the little back room with the nurse, and she's got the warm water, the flushing thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not really going to enjoy this, but and she was very nice. She goes, have you had this done before, dear, and everything? And yes. And so she's starting to do it. And one side came out easier than the other, but she had to go back to the first side, a second time to get it all out. And it was very unpleasant. And halfway through it, I'm sitting on the bench there and I notice I've got my feet off the floor, tensed. I'm I'm very tense. I'm holding my breath and I'm thinking, Doug, snap out of this. Like I used to be many years ago a professional firefighter, and right now, 2 days a week, I do fire safety training. And right, within if I've got a 60 to 90-minute session, within the first 5 minutes, I'm running through how to remain calm, and I'm teaching the class breathing techniques to remain calm because I've saved my life underwater. For like I've done over 2,000 scuba dives, and on two of them I've panicked and I've remembered to breathe. And I'm sitting there thinking, Doug, you've got to be kidding. What are you doing? This lady is just washing it out. And so I started to take some deep, slow breaths down into my abdomen and just slowly put my feet back on the floor and detense. And then I sort of started to, the sensation of the water flushing in and out under pressure in my ear then became more prevalent. I started to physically feel the sensation, and it wasn't as bad like when I wasn't tense. I allowed it more. It was just like, suck it up, Doug. This is what's happening right now. This will be over in a few minutes, and you'll be able to hear better. So the long-term effect of what I was not enjoying, it was, it was almost, I was making it emotional. Yeah, so when you were just explaining before, it came back, and I thought, yeah, and I thought my next couple of fire safety classes, I'm going to very quickly, much more briefer than that, give that example of where I had to snap out of it and just start breathing into it. And it just changed it, and it made it easier. I still would have rathered not having the water under pressure in my ear, but it was very different. I guess I used the word easier, and I guess it was easier, but it became quite different and probably more tolerable. Certainly not enjoyable. I just don't enjoy that sort of thing. But yeah, so yeah, I hear what you're saying with that. Yeah, very interesting. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, in regards that, I think it's important to remind people that even if, like you say, you're a firefighter, and or you have been, and you teach, people to breathe and to calm down, or me as a coach helping people drop down in their bodies and helping them overcome self-sabotage. Self-sabotage still shows up in my life, and I do catch myself stressed out at times, and it's okay, right? But it's just like recognizing that, oh, this is happening. It's something that maybe it's in our bodies. It's a habit, a conditioning in our bodies, and we may just automatically go there, tense up. I mean, I catch myself sometimes. I'm watching TV, and then I realize, oh, my shoulders are tense. Okay, relax them. Or even I'm lying in bed, ready to go to bed. I'm like, oh, my shoulders are up. So it's a habit, and I could just, okay, I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna drop them down, and then, So I think it's like, I think the more compassionate we can be with ourselves, uh, the easier it is to access our intuition as well.
yeah. And that, like you're just saying there, that recognizing that you're doing that, I was tense there for minutes yesterday before. I was tense longer than I wasn't. It was, and if I'd have recognized it earlier, or if before I went into the room, I knew I was going into a situation that I didn't enjoy. Um, I should have, and I tell people this, I talk to them about, you get in an emergency situation, or I say, or your boss says to you, hey, yesterday you told me about such and such. You know all about this thing that we don't know about. I need you in 10 minutes time to talk to the group for 5 minutes about such and such. That could spin someone out. They could have
Sure.
thought, oh, I haven't spoken in front of a group since I was in high school, and I stuffed that right up. I hate talking in front of people. And I say, if that happens, start to breathe now deep into your stomach. And yeah, and I know probably once a year when I'm doing a class for just some random class, it could be a bunch of teenagers, not even like highfalutin executives, whatever. And I'll start to get a bit funny. My palms are going clammy, and I'm like, haven't even started. And I'm like, oh, geez. And I just go for a quick walk and take some half a dozen deep, slow breaths and walk back in the room and forget that I was even tense. But I know that, but it's that. So yesterday it was, for me, I should have known better. I should have, put that little thing in place with that simple breathing, just that breathing in a different way instead of starting to hold my breath and tense myself up. Yeah. So it's great that, like you say, you get into bed and, your shoulders are up high, or you're feeling the tension, and that recognition is, what do you think? Is it just habit and training that we can train ourselves to recognize these things? I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot with that one. What can we do to
Yeah,
help recognize?
it definitely is a practice of just noticing. It could start as simple as noticing when we're stressed, um, or noticing when we're emotional, right? I mean, this is essentially what it is to drop in the body too. It is like there are things that we experience, and habit is we push it away, um, or conditioning. But if we stop to just notice and acknowledge that it's there, then we can do something different with it. And so, sure, it starts with, oh, I'm noticing that I'm not breathing well. I'm noticing that my head hurts. I'm noticing that actually, there's this exercise that I lead people through, and I call it the notice and be with mindfulness practice, and people can get this on my site as well. But it is, you know, let's see, where do I want to start with? So the simple matter of it is just taking stock of what's present and taking stock of what I might notice in the present moment that I'm aware of. And, you know, very simply in this situation here, I'm aware of you. I see you, Doug, on the screen, and I see a mirror of myself just below it, kind of talking. But I'm also aware of birds singing outside. I'm aware that there's this big mic in front of me, and oh, I'm actually leaning forward a little bit, and I'm feeling like maybe there's a little bit of tension in my upper abdomen, but it's okay. I don't need to do anything about that. And my hands are clasped, and my feet are on the floor, and my toes are curled a little bit. Like just noticing what's here is a way to bring ourselves present and aware. And then there's like the next level of like, oh, and I'm aware that there's this awareness that's aware of all this happening, right? And I think it starts there. I mean, it's kind of a long answer to your question, but it's like if we can take stock and notice what's here, then I've found personally that I feel more at ease and more calm when I can take stock and acknowledge everything rather than be vigilant about quieting the things that I don't like.
Right. So you're taking everything in. So it's like I've got a pain in my left knee, but my shoulders are also relaxed. My feet are
Hmm.
grounded on the floor. My right forehead's itching, and I don't really want to scratch it. Yeah. So it's what we enjoy, what we don't enjoy, like just
Yeah,
being aware of all of it. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. Now, earlier you mentioned your father was into meditation. Did he teach you much about meditation?
Oh, yeah. He credits meditation for his success in life, in school and in his job, his like wealth and intuition and all of that. And so when I was young, he taught myself and my brothers. I mean, I was probably under 10 years old that I started. And my dad is a devout Buddhist, and so we spent a lot of time in a Thai Buddhist temple as kids, learning to, I mean, there was chanting, and then there was meditation practice as well.
Wow. Okay. Was that in the US or in Thailand?
Yeah, in the US.
Yes. Okay. So there was a Thai temple in it because you
Yeah,
you seem to have quite an American accent. Were you born in America?
I was born in the US, yeah, in
Right. Okay.
Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. In Australia, geographically, we're very fortunate to be not that far from Thailand, and we've been maybe 5 times, and we go for
Mhm.
sort of 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And
Nice.
and the ridiculous thing is, every time we go, we stay in the same hotel. It's the smallest, it's a little 18-room hotel, and it's on the beach, like on the beach. And it's only
Mm,
2 story, and we just look at the beach, and there's a restaurant on either side of it, and you've often got sand under your feet. Like so you're sitting at the restaurant table on sand. And it's just
yeah.
like, they call it the old people's beach, like where we go to at Phuket. Like we don't go into like
Okay.
the high
Yeah.
where it's busy in the touristy section. We're at the quiet end of town, like, and
Mm,
yeah, absolutely love Thailand. It's just, yeah, it's been an amazing, amazing place. And we've actually gone there and had our extreme amount of dental work done for
mm,
about 20% of the price we would in Australia. And in all honesty, I begrudge going to a dentist in Australia now, not because of the cost, but because of the level of care.
mm.
It, they talk about 5 star. I would say in Thailand it's 6 star. It's
Wow.
it's yeah, it's amazing. The quality of medical care there is phenomenal. So yeah, yeah. Anyway, all right. So is going back to your father, and is there any like, because for men, for me, meditation is a big thing. Like the podcast is all about educating men why they should develop their intuition, and then how to. And one of the how to's for me, like one of the bigger how to's, is meditation. So is there like any particular tips that you could offer to me or to the men listening that would help them with maybe a beginning, if you've got any tips for beginners, and then maybe intermediate tip, if there's people listening who are
Mm,
like, yeah, I've been meditating for years. Because for me, I have been meditating for years, but I'll be honest, 95% is guided meditations.
mm.
Still not, I'm still a very beginner at just sitting there all on my own. So any particular things you can guide us on?
Well, I would say, um, probably the simplest would be what we talked about, which is focus on our breathing and doing it intentionally and consciously, and then like catching ourselves if we're wandered somewhere and or if we've like fallen asleep. Just bringing ourselves back to that breath is probably the simplest way. Um, I've done a lot of different meditation types of meditation over the years. Some are guided and some are just focused on breathing or um, when I was in the temple a lot, we focused on imagining that there was um like a glass ball in it's probably similar to what in Chinese medicine called the dantian, like two fingers below our belly button inside there, like kind of imagining that there's this I guess you would call like a mirror ball, but it's just like a glass ball and just like imagining there's a light there and just breathing and focusing on that light, just focusing there. That was a type of meditation. I've
So,
done
so imagining,
meditations.
sorry, just to clarify that one, imagining
Yeah.
that light just below our belly button and
Yeah. To
focusing our attention there.
right. Yeah. As we're breathing. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I've done a meditation where I imagine a figure eight, like an infinity symbol in between the sides of my brain. So it meets in the middle and goes like this, and that has been pretty huge in terms of balancing both sides of the brain and cultivating intuition.
Okay. And
I've done.
that one,
Go ahead.
I'll stop you on that one because I'm real curious there. And I do know what you mean, like the infinity symbol and what it looks like. So are you imagining like you're just you're following like a little ball of light or something around
Yeah.
the infinity symbol, and so we're joining the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the the imaginative and the whatever we call the other side, the more rational sort of side. Okay, and so that therefore maybe they will connect. Maybe we're connecting some neurons or something, or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the science of it, I didn't really focus so much on. I just focus on that movement because it's a very relaxing movement. To just kind of, like you said, to kind of follow a ball or follow an energy of just going in and out, and that gave my mind something to focus on. And it was very simple, and it just has a way of calming my mind. But also, what I noticed is I had a way of helping balance the different sides of the brain. So because we talked about earlier about how I spent a lot of time in my head, but I didn't spend a lot of time in my right side of my head. I spent a lot of time in the left side, the analytical side, right? The rational side, as you say, and trying to make sense of the world, trying to figure things out. So, being in my creative side or more flowy, intuitive side, if you will, it's not quite, you know, left or right intuitive, but I have noticed that when my both sides of the brain are more in balance, that I tend to be more in tune with what's, beyond this world.
okay. And so your father, you said they taught you about meditation, and then that helped him with his intuition. Did he ever specifically teach you anything about intuition, or it just was something that happened?
He never taught me anything about it. And he's only talked about intuition more recently. When I asked him like about his success and what made him successful, or what he thought made him successful, and he said meditation. And in meditation he includes chanting. So, he just Buddhist chants that he would do, and he still does every day. He's never missed a day since he was a kid. Like
How
he
old is
believes
your
that
father?
much. My father's 83.
Yeah,
80, he'll be 84 this September.
wow.
Yeah, so he hasn't missed a day. He chants every day. It's not always the same length every day, but he definitely makes sure that it's a part of his morning.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, like I've had a few guided meditations that have suggested to do that. And even just the like doing that.
Hmm.
And I get a little self-conscious doing that. It's, my wife usually leaves for work at 5:30 in the morning. So then I'll start my meditation practice. So I feel comfortable doing it. And it's only the dog listening to me. But yeah, I mean, to not have that self-consciousness and yeah, be able to step into that. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
The big thing for my dad is that, I mean, he would chant, but the chants are like blessings, right?
Mm,
So it's like blessing the family, blessing other people, blessing the world.
okay.
Um, in health, abundance, or, peace of mind, or, you know, having that stillness inside. So for my dad, it was for him, but it was also for others. And I think that's what helped him keep it going.
So is he just saying words or is he half singing it or is there some rhythm to it? Oh, I'm curious.
There's a rhythm. Yeah, there's definitely a rhythm to it. It's a Sanskrit chant, Buddhist chant. There are different verses or different, I don't even know how you call it. If maybe maybe you could call it a song. I'm not sure. Um, but And what I notice is like Thai Buddhist monks will chant one way, and then like Zen Buddhist monks may chant the same script, if you will, but it will sound differently, slightly different rhythm or slightly different intonations. I think it depends on the language as well, you
And
know. But it
yeah.
would be like like one thing I remember was like a basic thing would be like Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Utang, Pakawantang, Apiwa, Te Mi. And I don't remember what that means anymore, but that's kind of like the rhythm and the sing-songy and then kind of a resonance as well. And if you can imagine if like a number of monks get together and that resonance and that tuning that happens. And so when my dad chants, he'll sometimes do it on his own or he'll listen to some other monks chanting and he'll chant along just
Mm.
to get that kind of vibrational alignment.
And the whole time you were talking about that, it's like I could just knew like it's about the frequency of the vibration of the whole thing coming out. And yeah, wow. Yeah. So when you're saying he listens to other monks at times to get on that frequency, like he's listening to a recording or he's around
Yeah.
where they are. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if he's at home, he's listening to a recording. If he's at the temple, then he's
Yeah.
attending a sermon, then he'll be chanting along with the group of monks.
Right. So in the Christian tradition, it could be just like he's praying every morning. You,
Yeah.
you know what? Yeah. Yeah. He's praying for himself, his family, for the peace on earth or whatever it may be. Yeah. Okay. But it's, yeah, very interesting because I know, like, in my 20s, I was a fairly serious attender of a Christian church. And I know if you started to talk about some of these things that back then, say in the 80s, um, they would be viewed as like, chanting and that it's like, oh, that's demonic or something because you're getting
Mhm.
yourself into a state worked up in. And, I certainly don't think like that anymore. I can tell you. And I just like when you were explaining it to me and I was visualizing, I could almost feel the frequency of it. Like, and it was very enjoyable. It's like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just what Buddhists do. Their morning prayer, like it's, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're crying out to a unseen force and well, not crying out, but communicating with an unseen force, and it's creating a resonance in and around their physical body, and it's going out from them into the universe, and yeah, it's being spoken and requesting peace on
Yeah.
earth, etc. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think there's also when you're chanting and you're in unison like that, but even if you're not in unison, there's not a whole lot of thinking going on. Right? Your mind goes pretty quiet and pretty open. And I think that's also what makes being able to access our intuition more easily because it's always there. It's just that we normally have, it's like intuition is always in the room, but we have like so many devices playing. Like imagine if like TV was playing and then your phone is playing something and then your computer is playing something else. Like it drowns out the intuition, the inner guidance that's always here for us, but we're just too busy, too too distracted.
yeah, yeah. There's interference on the frequencies, and like I go back um, to the my first car. The radio in it was, had a dial, and in
Yeah.
between each station was static until you
Yeah.
tuned in, and then you
Yeah.
got slightly more modern one, and it had physical big long, push, 1/2 inch push buttons that you would
Right.
push in 1/2 inch, and it
Yeah.
would flick straight to, so you didn't have to hear the static in
Yeah.
between. Um, yeah, like and then if you couldn't pick up a station, you'd look out and you'd say, oh, I better hop out and put the antenna up, to get past the
Right.
higher the antenna,
Right.
the
Yeah.
more different signals you could pick up. And
Right.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, for me, be very foreign to be around that Buddhist tradition, but I would love to be there, but I would really feel like a fish out of water.
Mm.
Just like you say, your father, like doing that from a young child, doing it every day. Yeah, it'd be amazing. Yeah, yeah, really. I can feel that, and yeah, that would be really enjoyable. Now, when we spoke a week or so ago, you said quite a while ago you did a bit of a test to see how your intuition comes through, and it showed that you were clairvoyant, or I mean, that's just French for the words clear vision. But at the time, you doubted it, and then
Yeah.
like, you want to tell us more about how your intuition comes through for you?
Yeah. Um, well, my intuition journey has been a long one. I shared about how I was in a lot of fear and just trying to figure out life. And I knew that I wanted to develop my intuition. Um, but I also had in my mind how it should look, based on my friends, how they accessed information. And I would think, well, I don't access information that way, so I can't possibly be clairaudient or clairvoyant or, any clairsentient. I can't, I'm not like the others, so I must not have it, and I must need to train more, is what I went through. Um, but then I did enough courses on it where finally something clicked and they said, well, clairvoyance can look like this. Do you tend to use, I see a lot. Sometimes it's just part of our lexicon, it's part of what we use, but like I see or I hear, like, what do you tend to gravitate toward? And then, to be clear, voyant doesn't mean that you have to see auras and energies. It could just mean that the way that you receive information is through pictures. And that started to click for me because, yeah, I don't see auras and I don't see um, colors and things like that when people are describing. But yeah, I do receive images. Like they kind of drop down and then I get to describe them. Like, oh, like I get this image that, I get this sense that this is happening if I'm talking with a client or something like that. And what does it mean to you? Like, does this make any sense to you? It's like, oh yeah, like that's exactly what I'm feeling, or that's exactly what I needed to hear. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I don't know. And I think that's may perhaps some of the difference for me is like, I think I used to think of intuition as like factual text. Um, like I'm reading this in the book and this is so. Whereas, intuition is a, it's more of like a spectrum of energies, and sometimes it comes through as an image for me where then I would say I'm clairvoyant, but sometimes it's like a thought packet. Um, it's similar. It's just like a bunch of ideas that I get to kind of sort through and get clarity on, and then there's this other level of and so like that kind of what started it for me. And then I started to get more in touch with my body, and I think that now I'm I'm like all the clairs are kind of working more. I don't know if I'm clairaudient, but like clairsentient, like I feel a lot now through my bodies. And I'm very much in touch with my body in terms of sensations and contractions and tightness, and I do that in my coaching as where I can feel my client, maybe what they might be feeling in their bodies. I don't know for sure. I always have to check it. but I don't know if it's my experience or it's something I'm experiencing that they're experiencing, right? That those are some things that need to be checked. But that's kind of what guides me these days is um, that feeling in my body, and then images that come to me. Yeah, I don't know. Did I
Because
answer your question?
yeah, because the other day you mentioned that sometimes, like if you, for those of us who are older, like me, we remember the old 35 millimeter slides that we used to put
Right.
into a slide projector. Like you said,
Yeah.
sometimes like
Yeah.
an image can drop in like that for you.
Yeah.
And is it in color? Is it clear or is it vague? Does it last long? Do you have it for a fleeting moment? Do you see it for
Mm.
5 or 10 seconds? Like, do you see it until you talk about it? Like, because I don't usually experience things like that. So I'm
Yeah,
curious.
it's interesting. I've never thought about those details. Um, Sometimes it will come in, it will drop in, and I don't speak to it right away. I just let it go. I'm like, oh, whatever. This is just a thought. And I think that was a challenge for me too, is of like, oh, this is just a thought. Like I don't know if this is guidance or something. It's just a thought. And I would let it go. And then it would circle back around. It would come up again. And I'm like, okay, and if I'm with a client or something like that, I'm like, I don't know if this means anything. It's coming up again, and I share it, right? So I think now it's it is that 35 milliside, but it's also like as I tune into now that there's also like a sensation, a feeling in my body. It's probably that frequency that you were talking about, where um yeah, that there is the image, but there's also a feeling that comes with it, and then I get to describe it all. Is it clear? No, it's not like a picture. Um, it's more of like a photography picture or a drawing picture. It's not that. It's like a brief snapshot, and then I have to read the energy. I have to read it, interpret it, express it, and then see where it goes.
And I guess the more often you do that, the better you get at
Yeah.
doing it. So, would you ever have something like that come up when you're in session with a client that was a synchronistic moment where the day before you'd had, you might have actually seen an unusual bird or an unusual thing, and then now something very similar's popped up that are two very unusual things. Have you ever had that?
Absolutely, all the time. I
Yeah.
I don't know if I could tell you. Um, but yeah, it happens all the time. Like it's like universal orchestration. Uh, like I'm talking about something with someone, and then it shows up in my client session the next day. Um, or um, mm, that's just probably the only example I can think
Yeah.
of. But
Yeah.
something like that where it's it almost it's not this, but it's almost like Facebook listening in on our conversations and then pops up an ad. Uh,
You're saying Facebook's intuitive? No, I'm kidding.
no, I'm
No, I
not.
hear,
That's a
I hear you,
different
mate.
thing, but
Yeah, yeah,
it has almost like that same feeling of like, oh, I just talked about this. Now it's showing up in my conversation that means something.
yeah. And I like to think of synchronicities a little bit that the universe is, if it came through for me, the universe is like, well, Doug's a little bit daft on this area, so we're going to have to warm him up. So today we're going to put this in front of him, which will catch his attention for a moment because it's not normal. And he likes
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And Doug will
Yeah.
go, oh, wow, look at that shiny thing. That's nice. And then, like 3 hours later or the next morning, boom, now they hit me with the real thing and they warmed me up. So I'm now like,
Mm.
oh, that's like the shiny thing I saw yesterday. Oh,
Yeah.
and 30 years ago, I was I was a lot less, my pencil was a lot less sharp. They'd have to show it to me 3 times and it would probably be over a month. Whereas now it's just 2 times and it's usually less than a day apart. Uh, but I do know occasionally those who are dropping these things in my path are pleasantly surprised on odd occasions where I pick it up the first time, or I'm doubly interested. Like I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is a message. I
Mm.
don't actually know what it is, what it's about, but I know this is a message. And they're probably going, oi, Fred, did you see that? He actually like he's getting it. He's starting to get on our wavelength. You know, he's the radio, the statics has dropped. He's tuned that dial just a bit more into us. Oh look, he's jumped out of the car. He's pulling the antenna up another 2 feet. He wants to know what's it's
Mm.
about. He wants to hear
Yeah.
this song on the radio properly. He wants to sing along. He wants to hear the words. That's because I just love synchronicities because if you could see where I live, the house I live in, and everything like that without bragging, it all came through synchronicities over
Mm.
a period of like 25 years. Like it's just,
Mm.
I've followed synchronicities like, and they were just really obvious at the time and they set my life on a trajectory into a part, just was it my perfect plan for my life? Who knows? But it set me on a wonderful trajectory that, yeah, it just made things happen that I had no ability to do. So, as
Yeah.
much as I love intuition, synchronicities are right up there with it for me. Like
Oh,
I just
yeah.
love them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is just how intuition is just always prevalent and that maybe um we don't pay attention to it enough or notice that it's, intuition as a way for your listeners that are maybe exploring this to see, okay, I am intuitive, but I didn't think of it that way. And so, synchronicities is one way um that we are intuitive, where we're lined up for what we need. Um, but I was also thinking of like, um, if you're driving your car and you're at a light and then you like feel someone looking at you and you look at them and you catch them looking at you, like that's intuition, right? Um, or you get a weird feeling from someone that's unsavory, that's intuition. Um, but it's also like you walk in a room and it feels like there was an argument recently. That's intuition, right? You're reading the energy, but or the same as like you're with someone and they feel really joyful, um, but they're not necessarily um displaying it, but you have a sense that that's who they are or how they are. That's intuition, right? So it happens a lot, or it's always happening. We're just not always in touch with it. And the other thing that you were saying about like following synchronicities is that I think that sometimes when we're living life in a linear fashion, we get caught up in life being linear. Like this is the way life is supposed to happen. This is the plan I laid out for myself. And we it's like we come at it from this perception that like this is the way it's supposed to happen. But if we step back, like if I step back and look at my life, while I can see that like, oh, everything happened perfectly. I didn't like all of it. Some of it was painful and uncomfortable. Um,
Yeah.
and I could see how one piece led to the next piece to a next piece. Like I did this job and I gained skills here, and then I did this other job and I gained skills there. And maybe my first job helped me with my second job, and then all of the skills I learned helped me with who I am now in my business, right? It's like this like grand orchestration of like who we are and what we're here to do. And intuition is maybe a way to enjoy the ride more. Um, it's a way to live more in tune with who we are. Bringing our uniqueness to our lives and the people around us. To be less of cookie cutter people.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and sometimes like I like to look at our life as we're almost like an actor on a stage, and
Hmm.
we wrote the script, and we actually are that good of an actor with we play the part so well that we forget who we really are. And the lights are off in the audience and there's a spotlight on us. And, if you've ever been up on a stage like that, it's daunting because you can't see the crowd. You don't know whether there's 30 people or 3,000 people out there,
Mm.
and we can't see them. And they're cheering us on. And occasionally we forget our lines and they're yelling from the audience, your next line. And to me, sometimes that's the intuitive bit. And it's like, well, will we tell him the next line or will we let him go? Well, just because it's not, like you said, there's no like 100% path that you have to follow. It can flow whatever way. Um,
Yeah.
there's general things that we'd hope to, oh, I don't think achieve is the right word, but accomplish, experience, probably a better word, as we flow through our lives while we're here. And yeah, it's just we've got this audience out there who love us. They're all our relatives. They absolutely love us. They're enthralled with this crazy scene that we've written and we're acting out. And yeah, and I do think they yell from the sidelines, encouraging us. And some of them know the next line and they yell it out ahead of time. Just like we
Hmm.
can't. The teachers up the front asking sort of the class the questions, and you get that one kid who just can't help but blurt out the answer, and it's like, shh, we know the answer, but well, let's,
Yeah.
and there's we get that, and sometimes we get these booming voices that get our attention, and or we get the still small voice, like someone's over there, our great grandmother's sort of over there quietly whispering in our ear
Mm.
the next line, because as she can see
Right.
the blank look on our faces, we're like, oh, I've forgotten what the next bit is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I just see it as it when I see, and most people I talk to about that, and probably a lot of people listening are like, Doug, you're just fanciful. You're just like you're delusional of your vision of life. But when I think about life like that, it makes me feel good. And
Mm.
it's just like if I'm dreaming, don't wake me up.
Hmm.
Like I'm enjoying my delusional life of this is how it is and this is how it rolls. And you can stay in, as far as you can stay in your life and be worried and concerned and have
Right.
ulcers in your stomach because you're churning your stomach worrying about things. And it's not like I never worry about things, but when I think about life like this, it helps it seem so much more enjoyable. And yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think back to when I started ballroom dancing when I was in grad school, and my first performance was a waltz. And when it was done, my peers came to me and it was like, oh, I was cheering for you and yelling out your name. And I was like oblivious to all of that on the floor. I did not hear them. I barely heard the music. I was just focused on like let's try to do this right and dance on time. And we saw the video. I was not on time. My teacher is trying to back lead me a little bit to make, help me out. And that's my version of you sharing, like being on the stage and having people help you out. Like, yeah, there are always people helping us out. And it's just sometimes we're oblivious to it because in my case, I was in my head, um, so anxious and nervous of trying to get it right and not look like a fool that, I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that people aren't out there wanting to cheer me on and help me out.
Yeah. Yeah. I relate to that one. 18 months ago, I went and did about 8 ballroom dancing lessons, and I had the most wonderful teacher. Sh- she was like a guardian angel, just guided me through the
Mm,
whole thing. And by the end, I was shocked because I've never in my life been able to dance in the slightest. And yeah, it was an enjoyable experience, but yeah, like nerve-wracking. You couldn't focus on anything outside of what she was doing. And I mean, she had all the pictures on the world. She had all that. Her and her husband were Australian champion
mm,
ballroom dancers, or like the whole thing. And I think her husband grew up with his parents owning a ballroom dancing studio,
sure.
as a child,
Yeah.
like, and so it was just their lives, and it was just, and yeah, when you're talking about that, your teacher backleading you, like, yeah, yeah, she led me through everything, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was, yeah, but it's nice to know that there's people out there who are gracious enough to come down from, because I just couldn't imagine, like with what she does. It's like me scuba diving, like where I used to scuba dive in one of the top 5% of places on the planet. I didn't teach a lot of students because most people that came there were very experienced. But I can remember teaching students, and we would drop into the water, and there would be like a 4 foot long fish, like say 20 feet away. And I'd be pointing to it and I'd be wanting to look at this fish because you don't get a big fish like that close that often for very long. And
Yeah.
the students can't even see it because they're
Mm,
so tensed up in themselves
right.
on staying alive. And I'm on my sort of 1500th dive and I'm just so relaxed and it's just like sitting here drinking a cup of coffee. And
Mm,
I'm like, oh, how frustrating this is. And so for this, world class teacher to now come down 100 pegs down to, or 1,000 pegs down to my level and be tolerant enough to one on one walk me through this, like such basic levels from where she was at. And it's like it was like that. And I used to get frustrated. I was very good with the clients, but it was before I'd come back and my wife go, "How was your day?" And I'm like, oh, there was so much cool stuff to look at down there, but I couldn't do any of it. You just couldn't experience it because you had people's lives literally in your hands. You had to
sure.
watch them like a hawk.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, it's wonderful that there are. And so to take that to another level, we think we're pretty cool in our egos. There are all of these unseen beings out there, in my perception, who are constantly, moment by moment, watching us sleep and dream and breathe when we're not moving, watching us drive our car, helping us in our daily tasks, inspiring what we buy in the supermarket to put into our bodies. And they're bringing themselves down to our level. But I guess, if you look at the whole cycle of things, they've probably been down at our level at some time too, and we were maybe their guides. Who knows? So yeah, I just see that whole
Yeah.
unseen world as a wonderful place.
Yeah. I mean, it's not unlike of who we are, right? Like there's the human part of ourselves, it's the like we are the universe in human form, right? So it's like um I've heard about like channeling and things like that where um there is a step down in order to be physical, in order to be in density, right? But that intuition that we have, we're just accessing the parts of ourselves that are all knowing, that are and the different versions of ourselves that perhaps exist in I don't know, how do I say it? I feel like I'm fumbling here, but it's like we are greater than just the human, and that we're always accessing our higher wisdom. It's just, again, are we listening? Are we paying attention? Um, and I think it's also important to say that sometimes where you are on your path, you may not be be open or ready for it yet. But listening to this podcast, like if you're drawn to this podcast, then okay, the seed's been planted, or the seed was planted a while ago, and now you're opening up to the idea of like, oh, I am now curious. I am more interested in developing this. I am more interested in leaning into this, right? Like we're all on a path, and where we are on that path is really ideal for each of us. We can't compare ourselves with another person, and also we come in with different gifts and different ways of learning, and what we're here to learn, and what we're here to explore, and what we're here to struggle with. And so, again, it's uh, we have to honor that. We can't be critical. We certainly can be critical of ourselves, and I've done that for years, and sometimes it still happens. And um, the more compassionate I can be with myself, the more curious and kind, um, the less pressure I put on myself to be someone or be something. Uh, all of that drops, and I can feel more at ease being myself and accessing, higher intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. That's beautiful. I'm just noticing the time, and I want to be mindful of your time because I know you are a coach and you've got clients to talk to and communicate with. I'm going to put your contact info in the show notes. Is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you'd like to mention before we wind up?
Mm, I think there's this point that I mentioned. I didn't come up with this idea, but I love it. My friend and colleague Helen Amory, she came up with this idea of like, if you want to belong to others, you have to belong to yourself first. And
Oh,
um, and so belonging to ourselves is like being okay with ourselves. Like so often we are running around trying to prove to other people that we're enough, or we're okay, or that we're valuable. But we haven't stopped to accept ourselves. We're waiting for other people to accept us so that we can feel okay. And it's not a good game to play. It's not a
no,
fun game to play.
I'm hearing you, mate. Yeah, that's you just give me a big whack on both sides of the head. That I've really enjoyed. I hear you. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I I'm going to listen to this bit of the recording, the last minute or two, over and over and over again because my whole life that has been an issue for me, and
Mm.
I've tried to see it in a bigger frame to get out of it and to get beyond it. Yeah, no, that's. I'm so glad you shared that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah, I mean it's been a factor in my life too, of a feeling of not belonging and trying to get that approval and acceptance from other people. But when it comes down to it, I'm not accepting of myself. So how can I expect other people to?
Mm. Yeah.
Right. So, my life journey more recently has been this, focused on this, accepting myself, being more compassionate, being less critical, or if I am critical, being okay with that, and being more gentle with myself. And what I notice in that practice is that by creating a space of safety within myself, within my body, then all the other stuff that gets triggered normally when I don't feel safe doesn't show up as much.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. That's beautiful. All right, mate. Nat, I have really, really enjoyed our chat this morning. Well, morning for me, afternoon, late afternoon for you, on our
Yeah,
different sides of the world. You can see the sun behind me. We're just coming into winter and it's kind of low in the sky and it's coming in through the windows
nice.
here. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's no, this has been for me a really it's been different to some of my other podcasts, but it's been at a whole different frequency, a whole different level, but a very enjoyable one for me. And I think this is a great episode to just vary up with a bit of variance into what some of my other episodes have been for listeners. It's I think it's a great thing to have that variety in there. So thank you for what you've brought to the podcast today and to the people out there on the planet listening in from now until forevermore. That these
yeah,
podcasts are all sitting out there available for everyone to tap into. Uh,
yeah, Doug, this has been really great. I really enjoyed and appreciated your just relaxed vibe and just kind of easygoing nature of this podcast. Just kind of, it's like two friends or two new friends having a good conversation. And so that was a very nice experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it. All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day with your clients, etc. And
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Doug.
Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.